All right, here we go. The next speaker is Shelley, who is going to be talking about theater and storytelling skills to catapult weddings into a new stratosphere. And as you can probably deduce from the title, Chris has a background in theater. And and honestly, I think his presentation is going to speak for itself, but it's certainly an important aspect of officiating and creating a memorable and powerful ceremony. So let's put our hands together for Chris and kick this off.
I was the shyest kid in Boston. And then I moved to Springfield, Massachusetts, where I became the shyest person in Springfield, Massachusetts. And then one year I joined a drama club. Yeah. Mostly to meet girls, but also to gain confidence. And through high school and interning at a local theater, going to Boston University for an acting major, a BFA, not at all valuable. I learned how to pretend to be other people, because that's what actors do. They just pretend to be other people. Actors are the most insecure people you'll ever meet. And we get into theater to pretend to be other people. And eventually we learn how to pretend to be ourselves. And eventually to be ourselves. In 2009, 2010, 2011, somewhere around there, I discovered weddings. And I thought, I want to do that. For years, I'd gone to ceremonies at weddings that I didn't like the ceremony. I had a great time drinking and dancing, like everyone does. But I always thought there was something missing from the ceremony. It seemed like the person doing the wedding didn't even know the couple, which seemed wrong to me. I just wanted to get up there and just say, like, no, this is Bob and Jane. They have an incredible story together. We need to talk about that story and celebrate it. We're all here to celebrate. It's not 1950. We're here to celebrate everything. If no one in their lives has told them getting married is a bad idea by now, then let's just celebrate starting now. So I've been doing weddings ever since. I saw a wedding that was very personal. And it was not a priest or a rabbi. I assumed it had to be a priest or a rabbi or something. Turns out that wasn't true. It takes me longer to learn things than some people. But I interviewed a lot of people who do weddings, and I found a school called the Celebrant Foundation and Institute, which trains people to become wedding celebrants, funeral celebrants, celebrants for life events, baby namings, divorces, retirement ceremonies. You kind of major in one thing. I majored in weddings. And before I even graduated from the Celebrant Foundation, I did my first wedding. I made business cards, made a website, because that's what you did back then, kind of what you still do now. I threw myself out there. I put myself on Wedding Wire and The Knot, because they were different then. They're still different, right? I just threw myself out there. I was just putting all my chips in, and when someone contacted me, I would bluff and just tell them, yes, I'm going to do your wedding. I'm going to do a great job. I love this work. I have full transparency. I have not officiated a real one, but I have written and performed hypothetical ceremonies between lots of different people. Because at the Celebrant Foundation, you learn how to incorporate different religions and cultural beliefs into a ceremony without overwhelming the ceremony and still making it about the couple. It is always about the couple. So I interviewed a lot of people who did that and thought, I'm going to attend the school as well. I probably didn't have to. You can do this job, you can learn on your own and learn from events like this. But I really wanted to support the networking, and so I went. I'm glad I did. I met wonderful people there, made a lot of contacts. The Facebook learning that continues to this day was invaluable. The last time I was at Wedding MBA, I was representing the Celebrant Foundation. And I loved speaking about that school and how much it meant to me. But that's not what today is about. I know there's a whole range of experience in this room. One thing that will be true of all of us is that no matter how many weddings you've officiated already, you still have not officiated your next wedding. So there's always time to review your own processes, to review how you prepare for a wedding, what you do at a wedding venue, what do you do to prepare for it. And I still remember my very first wedding that I booked. It was at Rockefeller Center in December 3rd, 2011. The Christmas tree at Rockefeller Center was just put up a couple of days before that. So pretty much everyone in the universe was around the tree. And you know how there's like a row of angels on a path leading up to Fifth Avenue and Saks Fifth Avenue? And they wanted to do it near the angels. So we said, fine, it was maybe 11 people. It was a second marriage for both of them. They had their kids there. My wife came with me. I needed her with me to help me, because I knew I was going to have to do some crowd control, and it was like being a street busker, because we had to like wedge our way in there and enforce a little ceremony area for ourselves and hold that and not let people in. The other factor was that on the side of Saks Fifth Avenue, they were doing an amazing laser light show every 15 minutes, which was very loud. Merry Christmas, blah, 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 blah. So we had to time the ceremony to fit in between Saks Fifth Avenue shows. So it's hard enough doing your first ceremony, now you got to time it with Saks Fifth Avenue. I would love to tell you that we timed it perfectly. We didn't. We got to the vows, and they were sharing their personal vows with each other. They didn't have a microphone. And they're sharing their vows, and they're crying. And she's saying how much he means to her and everything else. And then you hear, on the 12th day of Christmas, I love you so much. You mean so much to me. And I love you forever. And it was just bad timing. But I loved it. I loved it, and I was addicted and hooked immediately. I'm a theater person. I'm a theater guy. My preparation for weddings is based on my experience in theater as a performer, as someone who is ensconced in a theatrical situation with directors and stage managers and lighting people and sound people, a whole team of people. Sounds familiar, right? At a wedding, it's a whole team of people making something work. The difference is we only have one shot to get it right, often don't have a dress rehearsal, and good luck, with that. So my preparation, I view wedding ceremonies as a one-act play that has to be written, has to be rehearsed, and has to be performed. I'm also a writer. I've a voracious reader turned into a writer. My school in Boston encouraged people to write creatively since we were in second, third grade. So I've written my whole life. I've always been a writer. I write all of my ceremonies specifically for each couple. There's a love story that's about that couple. Every single one I do. Unless I'm doing a little elopement, I don't do so many elopements. With elopements, I do kind of a fake psychic thing with them. Now that I've learned that every love story is the same, I will do a fake psychic type thing. I'm getting something here. I'm getting that the first time you ever met, you were in the same place at the same time. Is that true? I knew it. The letter S. I don't know I'm getting the letter S. The letter S, that's something sipping, coffee. I'm like, the place you met, was there a Starbucks nearby? Oh my God. I did this for a couple once recently, and I said, I'm getting something. It was in Cincinnati, Ohio, and the local grocery store is Kroger's. So instead of Starbucks, I said Kroger's. And she says, I've worked for Kroger's for 30 years. And I'm like, I know. So I'm a theater guy. Whoa, I'm not a... Oh, by the way, whenever you're going to do a really big, important speech at a conference, it's always good to have a giant burrito right before you go on stage. It helps you concentrate. So, before the wedding day, now that's a lot of days, right? You get hired maybe in October, the wedding's not till August, that's a lot of days that are before the wedding day. But that's good, because there's a lot to do. There's a lot to do. I mentioned there are one-act plays that need to be written and performed. First is the writing part. So what do you write? What do you put in a ceremony? I write out in my ceremonies, they look like scripts for a play or a screenplay. Everything is spelled out, from the people involved, who's talking, who's entering, who's standing where, who's got what props, what's going to happen, all of it. So when my couples read the ceremony, they get an idea of everything that's going to happen. This is something unique to the Celebrant Foundation. Our rule, sort of, is no surprises for the couple, which is why I'm one of those people that shows the couple the entire script beforehand, and they become my writing partners. And it's also because I'm lonely when I write, and I like having writing partners, but more than that, I want my couple to approve of everything I'm going to say, look forward to it as much as I do, and get to enjoy it longer than just that day. But that's just my thing. Everyone has a different way of doing things. So before the wedding day, there's a lot to find out. What do they want? God, what do you want? There's a lot to think of. You start thinking of these things as soon as you meet them. As soon as they make an inquiry, you can learn a lot about them. Are they looking for something standard or something personalized like you do? And this goes back to what Bethel was saying. Are these your ideal clients, or heading toward that, or not? What do they want? In no particular order. Are they going to say personal vows for each other? That tells you a lot about a couple. If a couple can write personal vows for each other, I love that. I encourage it all the time. It says that they can write, they're confident, they're smart, they have things they want to say. They have thought about this. They're well-intentioned with this wedding, which already makes me feel good about signing their license. If they're not doing that, what are they going to do? You want to give them some options for that moment. I could ask you a bunch of questions, and you say I do to each one. The people who don't like speaking in public love that. They're like, I can see I do a couple times, but I can't say personal stuff. I'm going to cry. They always say, I'm going to cry. And I tell them, the people who tell me they're going to cry, don't cry. And the people who tell me, oh, there's no way, I'm stoic, whatever, bawling. Bawling. You just don't know till you get in that moment. I choked up reading my own vows in my own wedding. I didn't think that was going to happen. I think I really love my wife, now that it occurs to me. So what are they going to do? Personal vows, I do's. All of this goes into my questionnaire. I have a very thorough questionnaire, which I'll get to in a moment. But these are things you're asking about. Rituals. Dr. Reverend Samora was talking about. Are there rituals from different cultures, different religions? What needs to be included? Honor parents. Here's a sensitive thing. First, it's good to determine if the parents are alive, if the parents are still married, if the parents are still married to each other. Are they remarried to other people? Will those other people be there? And suddenly the processional order is getting a little confusing. Is it going to be a stepdad? Is the stepdad more important than the real dad? Did the real dad die? I tell them that, how you're not supposed to lie to your doctor? I tell them, don't lie to your officiant either. I need to know what's going on in your life, because it's not just the ceremony. I'm at your venue. I'm mingling amongst your people beforehand, during, afterwards. I don't want to embarrass you. I don't want to say, hey, where's Grandma? Grandma just died in a ski accident last week. I don't want to make anyone upset at the wedding. So get your questionnaires going. Even if you're like 0 to 2 years doing this, get your questionnaires going. If you're 10 to 20 years officiating, look at your questionnaires. Are those questions getting you good answers? Are you using that material in the ceremonies you create? Are you not? Maybe take them out. I'm tweaking mine all the time. I inherited my questionnaire, full transparency. I didn't think up the whole thing myself. I inherited a questionnaire from a wonderful celebrant named Julie Laudicina, who sadly passed last year. I got to preside over her memorial service, one of the most meaningful and sad things I've ever been honored to do. And every time I look at this questionnaire, I think of Julie. And I wonder if I'm making her proud. But I've also tweaked her questionnaire because some of the questions just weren't getting me anything. Anyway, back to this. Do we need to honor anyone who has passed on? The dearly departed, as my Harvard friend would say. Who are these people? What are their names? How do you pronounce their names? Who are they to you? Paternal grandparents, maternal grandparents, uncle, aunt, good friend. And I explained to them, we just mentioned it very briefly, this is not a funeral, it's a wedding, but it's honorable and polite and meaningful to mention people you would have loved to have been there. And I mention, almost like a psychic, that they are so happy to see you both getting married today. They're here today. I can feel them. They're here. And then you move on. Just FYI, officiating 101. Do you want it to be serious? Do you want it to be funny? Do you want it to be a mixture? If you're hiring me, it's probably going to be a little bit funny, and it's going to be meaningful as well. And the strategy I use is that you need to have humor in the ceremony to keep people listening. I find in my experience, when I go to events, if they're kind of at a 4, if they're serious, they never deviate from like level 4, low level, I'm probably going to zone out because that's going to become like white noise. But if it goes all over the place, it's an 8, it's down to a 2, it's more interesting, and you have to pay attention. So if I'm making people laugh at a wedding ceremony, who thought a wedding ceremony can be funny? If they laugh, they're going to keep listening. What is this weird guy going to say next? And then when I put in all the serious stuff later on, the meaningful things I'm saying about this couple and about love and how important it is in this world, they'll keep listening. So my jokes per minute, my JPM, has to be high. And this is something when I'm writing a script, I look over it. I have studied humor writing. I've studied at Second City, has a whole writing program. I've done almost every class there. There's an art and a science to it. There's a great book by Joe Toplin, which I should have put on there. Joe Toplin wrote most of the series Monk, and he's contributed to lots of other TV shows too. And he breaks down humor writing. And I'm not saying it has to be all funny, but it's very useful in being efficient with your language. So that's a tangent. My note to self is don't do too many tangents. Anyway, do I have a big wedding party? Do I have a small wedding party? That tells you something about the couple. They have a big wedding party. I'm guessing they're under 30. They love social media. They want to have a picture with lots of friends around. They don't know how to say no yet to anyone. And they want to kind of show off. They have a lot of people up there. But that tells you something about them. And it tells you something probably about who you're going to be speaking to. If they have a small wedding party, or maybe even no wedding party, that tells you something too. These are private people. Maybe it's not the first marriage. Maybe they're just really shy. Maybe this means more to them than any couple you've met in the last couple of years. So be sensitive to that if this is a small wedding party. There's no right or wrong. It's just what they have. Are they standing or sitting? This is a whole thing these days, and every venue space you go to will be different. Sometimes it's really useful to have the wedding party all seated instead of standing, because you only have the width of this little platform here to do the whole wedding. And maybe you are literally on a platform surrounded by candles. There's no room for anyone. So it's useful to have everyone sitting down. Or are they standing up? And if they're standing up, which I'll show you in a few minutes, you can use these people to do stuff for you to make the ceremony more fun. So that tells you something. This is going to be a flower girl, a ring bearer. Obviously, this means that her family or friends have had children, and they like them, and you can use them to use children. If you have any takeaway today, you can use children. Write that down. Use children. Flower girls are adorable. Ring bearers. Flower girls, here's a story for you. I'm taking a tangent again. Just recently, a good story and a bad story. The bad story, there was this awful wedding. They were awful. They really were. If any of you had this couple, you would be so mad at them. But it was one of these over-the-top lavender lighting event spaces up in New York somewhere. And the flower girl was supposed to be the last one entering before the bride. It was one of these things where the whole wedding party, each one, the door opens to reveal the next people who are coming out, and it closes behind them. So you don't know what's happening back here. So you don't know if the flower girl just had a meltdown and she's not going to enter. Meanwhile, you want everyone to stand up to greet the bride, yes? It's just still nice to do that. So there's a certain clock in your head. You're like, where's the flower girl? Where's the flower girl? You say to the groom, is the flower girl coming? Is she still? You don't know. Okay, of course, why not? You're the groom. You don't know anything. Where's the flower girl? So given the option of not having anyone standing when the bride comes out, or having everyone standing for a flower girl, I'm going with everyone standing, even if it's the flower girl. So I get everyone, yeah, please stand to greet the bride. And sure enough, the next person's the bride, because the flower girl had a meltdown. She's still in therapy today. She's going to be fine. Anyway, that's my flower girl story. The good flower girl story is that sometimes they really get into the actual flower throwing part, which is their job. Sometimes they come out and they barely do anything because they're shy and they're just like, I'll just do a little bit on, I'm just going to get my flower girl job over with, and I'm not very much. Other ones come in and they take a bunch of flowers and throw it somewhere, and they throw it all over them and smear them everywhere. And those are my people. Those are my flower girls, right? They're hired every wedding I'm going to do. That's my good flower girl story. Are they going to exchange rings? Most do. Maybe 99.9%, yeah, they're doing rings. Except for the ones that get the ring tattoos. You ever see that? Yeah. In the middle of the ceremony. During the ceremony. Just like welder's glasses. Yeah, painful. The screaming. There's so much screaming. Are they gonna, if they're exchanging rings, who's got the rings? Who's gonna hold them for you? Who's gonna give them to you? Is there any special meaning behind the rings? We made them ourselves. These were my grandmother and grandfather's rings. We found these off a dead guy in Las Vegas. Like, what's the story? Are they gonna incorporate readings? Let's come up and do a reading. At a side lectern over here, there's going to be in the side lectern, someone to come up and do a reading. Has that person ever spoken in public before? Does that person know about speaking in public and making things clear for people? Or is it your 8-year-old nephew? Swear to God, swear to someone, sorry, all inclusive. Love comes in all flavors. My favorite poet is Billy Collins. He was going to read a Billy Collins poem, and let me tell you, that 8-year-old read that Billy Collins poem faster than anyone's read any poem in the history of the world. No one understood a word. He was like an auctioneer, but with a Billy Collins poem. Who's doing the readings? Are they doing songs? Is an a cappella group going to come up and do a song? Because those are really cool. At the end of the ceremony, will there be people with microphones hidden in the crowd that are going to rise up and start singing? Because that's fun too. All this stuff, this is before the wedding. This is before I even started writing. But when I write ceremonies, maybe you work differently, the first thing I do is I set up what has to happen. Everything that has to happen, the skeleton of the thing. I have templates. I have the ones for the people doing their own vows, the ones for people doing the asking, the ones for people doing a combo. Different, to save yourself time, you're systeming. I use that, I said everything that has to happen. Sometimes that's the only thing I do that day. And then I go drink beer. So all of this goes into that part. That burrito, I'm telling you. Maybe later. So then, for lack of a better term, I call my story about them the love story. And they're going to send you all these slides. These are not very useful slides, but they're slides nonetheless. So this love story, this thing I'm telling all these guests about, 6 to 8 minutes, maybe 9, in the middle of the ceremony, what goes into that? You already know all the stuff they want to do and what they want to have and who's involved and who the people are and who the vendors are, but what about them? So now you're a journalist, right? You want to find out way more about them than you ever need to know. All of this is designed to tell a good story. At the heart of every good story is conflict, overcoming obstacles, hero's journey, Joseph Campbell. This is stuff you study at the Celebrant Foundation and should study because it's interesting anyway. Who are the heroes of the story? It's always the couple. Did they overcome anything? How they met. How's that like storytelling? How they met. They're living these completely separate lives. She's living her life, he's living his life. How did the Venn diagrams of their lives overlap? It's always cool to find out. It's always cool. Even if they met online, there's a lot of people online. Why that person? What stood out to you about their post or their picture, or what did they say to you? Do you remember the first thing they said that hooked you in? How did the Venn diagrams of your lives overlap? Because in a way, you're not going to get married unless you overcome the obstacle of meeting your person. And some people sadly go their whole lives. They never find their person, their red thread. Who's connected to the other side of that red thread? They never meet that person. But the people who do are very fortunate. But let's find out how that happened. The early days, you're learning about how you're different and how you're similar. You can be in love with them, they can be gorgeous, you can be compatible in many ways, spiritual and physical. But what if you start spending time with them and find out they're not good at cleaning up dishes? They snore. They talk in their sleep. They use bad words around people you wouldn't want them using bad words about. You're finding out how you're different, how you're similar, and that's a kind of obstacle overcoming. Are these serious enough that you're not going to be in a relationship anymore? Or are they just ways that maybe you can change? Maybe he's really extroverted, and it's served him well in his life. Maybe she's really introverted, and someone like her can help him. Maybe he goes too far in his extroversion, and she helps reel him in. And now they have something good going on there. And so they've realized this. They're different, but they can make it work for them. And there can be as many differences between people as there are grains of sand on the beach. So find out what some of those are. And you can use those to show what they care about, to show what's important to them. And you can also use them, going back to the humor aspect, you can make ridiculous comparisons. I love putting details and facts about people together in ways no one's thought of before. Or they have, and they just haven't vocalized it the right way. His apartment is very neat. Hers is a dumpster fire. He has several degrees from lots of higher education institutions. She runs a Fortune 500 company. What are the differences? She remembers every single thing about the day they met, what they were wearing, what music was playing, what was going on, what they talked about. He remembers it was a Thursday. What are these details you can put together as sort of a montage of portrait painting, if you will? What did they overcome as obstacles that are real obstacles? Did their work schedules not line up? Was one a nurse working overnight, the other a school teacher in the daytime? How did they find time for each other? Did one of them live in a foreign country and the other one lived here? Did one of them live in Staten Island and one of them lived in Manhattan? That's still long distance. Even longer, maybe. How did they overcome that? How did they make that work? Did they amp up their communication in other ways? It's so much easier now. In the old days, we had to write a letter and wait 2 weeks for her to write back. And then when she didn't write back after 2 weeks, well, what's she doing over there in France? I'm going on a tangent. Anyway, so that tells you something. And it gives us all that feeling of joy because they overcame whatever they had to overcome to get here today at their wedding day. How'd the proposal happen? I just think it's fun. It's fun because inherently there was a plan. And the plan didn't really go according to plan, but we all know it's a happy ending because we're here at the wedding. But I love hearing about how the person proposing failed and tried to do something. And it just always makes for a fun little story. Even if they know the details of the story, they haven't really heard it told by a professional storyteller who's telling it for everyone again. And never assume everyone knows everything about their story. Deep thoughts about love. I'm a marriage enthusiast. I've been married for 20 years in a row. Yep. Same person. Yep. And I feel very lucky. I have someone to make sure I don't leave the house with a huge stain on my shirt. I have someone who I can run an idea by, and she can tell me that's a great idea or that's not such a great idea. I have a check and balances. I have someone to talk to. I have someone to be with all the time. And a lot of people don't. And I feel very fortunate. Yeah. So I have deep thoughts I have feelings. I have deep thoughts about love. And like Bethel said, I'm growing older. All my clients are the same age. And the older I get, the more passionate I am about telling them, you have a lot to look forward to. And I always tell them, this is what I do. You can tell them whatever you want to tell them. I won't be there. I tell them, I know you know each other very well now. You're getting married, you've been together, you've been through some things, you've known each other for a long time. But I've seen your marriage license, I know how young you are. You're going to be growing and changing and becoming more interesting people. So keep up with each other as you change. Keep asking questions like it's a first date. Never assume you know everything. Never assume you know anything. Always ask questions. And if you do, you will know each other 1,000 times better than you do right now, I promise you. You have a lot to look forward to. I'm so excited for you. So are all these people. Isn't that right, all of these people? And then everyone claps and goes crazy, and I have time to turn my page and see where I am. So I sneak in deep thoughts about love. After several years, I was getting a little jaded reading my questionnaire responses, because they all sounded the same after a while. And you can get jaded and kind of numb to it. You're like, yeah, she's the most wonderful person I've ever met. She's the smartest, most caring individual I've ever met. And part of you wants to say, maybe you should meet more people. Or just give each other awards already. You are the best woman I've ever known in my entire life. I've never left home. So I realized there's the only universal thing, and I just say it every wedding now. I say, like every love story in the history of love stories, once they were together, if they were ever apart, they realized they preferred being together, so they decided to stay together forever. And I transitioned into the proposal story. Just what I do. But it's enough to get people thinking of the big picture of this is a small miracle that these people have found each other. Just enough. You don't want to go on too long. You don't want people to zone out. Just enough. So I said I'm a theater guy. Theater rehearsals and performances are just baked into what you do. It's just part of it. So I feel like there's no way I'm going to let myself show up at a wedding having not spoken through the ceremony a couple times, having not thought about where I'm standing, what has to happen, who's entering, who's doing what. I'm going to go through this thing in my head several times. I'm going to talk through it. So about 3 days before a wedding, Saturday wedding, I start rehearsing on Wednesday. Friday, I start rehearsing on Tuesday. If I have multiple weddings, I do read-throughs of both. And these are not like full voice things. How am I doing in time? Terribly. I want to jump to the next part fast. But little podcast talk-throughs, pretend you're doing a podcast, just read through the whole thing. It makes you really focus on the words and what you have to enunciate, and it doesn't really strain your voice too bad. Story statues. What are story statues, Chris? I'll tell you. Part of the theater training I did was this Japanese method of training called the Suzuki method. Tadashi Suzuki was a brilliant Japanese director. The whole thing is built on power and strength and stillness. You may notice a lot when I'm speaking to you, I might stop while I'm talking. It's easier to understand something if they're not moving while they're talking. Someone's moving all over the place and talking while they're doing things. It's not as easy to know what they're saying, but if they stop and make a choice, and they're talking to you and they're still, it's easier to hear what they're saying. Those are story statues. Quarterback drills. Anyone here a football fan at all? You know what a quarterback is? Okay. So they do drills where as they're running around and doing their practicing, someone has a plastic thing to them, they're like a resistance band to make it more difficult, or they're actually punching them while they're doing some of the drills and exercises because they're going to get hit in the game. I kind of do that. I'm kind of insane. I kind of do that for officiating. I will practice reading the thing in bad lighting because maybe there'll be no light where you are that night. The sun goes down and that was your source of light, but you're starting late, and what are you going to do? Unless you have a little pen flashlight, which you should have. I need to get another one. Are you outdoors? Is there wind? How does that feel? With wind blowing your pages every which way, blowing your hair, blowing whatever, blowing sand everywhere, blowing the arch over. How does that feel? But if you put a fan on or stand and open a window or go outside, you know what it feels like. Tweeter woofer, this is for everyone. All right, so what is the tweeter? What's the woofer? Let's start with the woofer. The woofer is your diaphragm breathing. You take a deep breath in, you fill up this whole thing. It's like the bagpipe of your body. You fill it up with air and it gives you this nice bass, strong kind of bass. James Earl Jones is woofer. He's all woofer. Luke, I am your father. That's the woofer. That's your power bass. Tweener. The tweener is the nasal part up here. That's the Fran Drescher. Lewis is actually more tweeter than he is anything. And I have a feeling that Officiant Jimmy's more woofer. Jimmy's more woofer, right? And then if you put them both together, you can probably speak to a group of people without even using a microphone. Because suddenly you have this power base and this whole thing that makes every single thing you say clear and fresh for everyone there. Get it? Okay. I'm running out of time. Okay, let's all use our woofer. Ready? And say these words. On the wedding day. One more time. On the wedding day. And now let's use our tweeter. On the wedding day, you are a wedding vendor. Groups of people will do anything you tell them to if you have a microphone. This is stuff, let's talk more about this later. I'm running short here, but I want to do something fun. When you get to a venue, you're going to see that the grass is uneven, that they intend to use a runner. This thing here is going to be a runner. I hate runners. They're the dumbest things in the world. And the microphone has a little wire. See? Right there? So that tells you later, if you move the microphone out of the way, when you get out of the way for the kiss photo, go the direction of the wire. Don't go the other way. Check out the space. Is it clear? Are there twigs? Right behind here is a street. What are on streets? Cars. Are they loud? Maybe. So keep that in mind as you're working. Positioning cues, blah, blah, blah. When you get there, at the wedding venue, you're going to check in with the venue host, planner, DJ, musicians, photographer, videographer, couple, wedding party. You have things to do with all of these people. And this is especially for the newer folks here. You need to check in with all of these people so the venue host knows you're there and you're ready. The planner knows you're there and you're going to be a part of rehearsal or you're going to be doing whatever you have to do, sign the license. The DJ is there. DJ and musicians, they are there. They know, as you talk to them, what the cues are. And they're going to understand that you know all the cues. And in some, I am all the cues. I don't leave that to anyone else. I don't trust anyone. I do all the cues for them verbally, and I look them in the eye and tell them, this is your cue. Photographer, I like to let them know courtesy things, like we have a couple readers coming up. Just so you know, we have an a cappella group. I let them know I will get out of the way before the kiss photo, and I'll make it obvious that that moment's about to happen. Don't worry. Because they will ask you that. Could you please just get out of the way before the kiss? And you tell them, this is not my first rodeo. All right, here's something I'd like to do. This should be fun for all of you. I mentioned before, when there's a bunch of groomsmen and bridesmaids, I just think it's so dumb to have them up there and not doing anything. So I like to use them. I need about 10 volunteers to be 5 couples. So 5 couples of people can get up. You can be anyone, yeah, it could be anyone, as long as you're in this room. And just stay right there, stay right there. Partner up with someone in like, let's say this is the aisle. Yeah, very good. That's right, so I would tell the photographer, I'm gonna do this fun thing with people walking up the aisle. Okay, so what usually happens, the groomsmen and bridesmen walk up, right, very solemn, and they quietly just go to their sides, and they have no energy, and they stand there and they're waiting, and it's just a real energy suck, and that's not what I like. I like when the first couple, ideally, this is how it builds, the first couple comes up, and they do something small to say goodbye to each other, maybe like a tap of the index fingers, something really small. And then they get into place. Thank you so much. And the people who see that go, what was that? Second couple comes in, does something a little bit larger than the first couple. A little kiss. So polite, lovely. And oftentimes there's a groom up here too, so I encourage them to have a moment with the groom. Third couple. So now, stop there. Now the crowd wonders, well, okay, the first 2 people did something different. That's already establishing a pattern. What's the third one going to do? Third one's going to do something even bigger than the first 2. Like maybe a hip bump. Perfect. Now the pressure's on this couple. This couple's coming in. Oh, what are they going to do? This couple comes in. This couple comes in. Yep, going to walk forward like people do. Okay, very good. And what? Oh, fantastic. Please stand to greet the bride. Okay, then, once I have everyone up here, the reason I wrote Greek chorus up there, actually, before I get to that, couple things. One trend these days, just so you know, is that I'll come out, people will come out and make an announcement, please no photos during the ceremony, thank you so much, no social media, no photo. But then once everyone's in place and the bride and groom are here and everything is this lovely thing, they say, we're going to give you 30 seconds to take as many photos as you want. I think it's kind of nice. Everyone gets their phones out. And now we could take photos like this, just posed, boring, same old thing like they've been doing with their photographer for 5 hours. Or we could do something different. Oh my God, there's an alien spaceship landing on top of us. And everyone acts out, oh my God. Let's all salute the orchestra. Thank you so much. Wonderful. And we're finding stillness, right? We're staying still for the cameras. Then we're all in the Rockettes. Whatever it is, you can use these people. Then, later on, you're telling the story. And maybe you tell something sad that happened in their story. And just when they were getting to really know each other, she moved to France for her internship. And everyone goes, oh. And then she came back home, and now they're getting married. Yeah, everyone's happy. Let's say they were friends for a long time, and then they went on a vacation to the Bahamas and became more than friends. Here's what I like having my people do up here. I have them start a nice slow, oh, yeah. And then you go on with the story like nothing happened. So I like to use people up here as a Greek chorus, and you find things that are specific and interesting to your couple, so it's not really crazy. And ideally, you have a moment to rehearse with these people, maybe back in the room where they're gathering or something. And my advice is this really pays off well if you can convince people to do it, but you have to give them simple things to do. These are not professional actors or dancers. These are people who've been drinking Bud Light since 12. I don't mean since noon, I mean since they were 12. They are not the best people. They're not going to pay attention as much as you'd like them to. So give them simple things to do. Oh, yeah, easy to remember. The old corny one, and on their first date, it was so hot. I'll tell you, it was so, and then, yeah, it's corny, but every single time. The thing is, no one expects anything out of the ordinary to happen. The bar is really, 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 really low to surprise people. You can just step over and it's the easiest thing if you just do something with these people. And there's lots more you can do. When the maids of honor and the bridesmaids walk up the aisle with their bouquets, they can hand out handkerchiefs for the people who are going to cry, or snacks, or something. There's things you can do. Anyway, that's that part. And then when you exit, you're having fun. Here you go out. Yeah, let's all exit. Here you go. Actually, that's wrong. Oh, fine. That's fine. We can go that way. Very good. Lewis, do I have 2 minutes to show one more thing? 2 minutes? 5? Great. I don't have 5 minutes of material. All right, I need 2 more people to be a couple. Come on up here and be a couple. I just want to show you one small thing. Bethel, okay, now, most of the time, your couples, especially if they're under the age of 30, will think we're doing the Holy Trinity, where the preacher man is in the middle and the people getting married are right in front of him. That's the Holy Trinity. To me, imagine if you went to some conference and there was a speaker doing a presentation, and 2 people stood in front of the speaker the whole time. That never happens, does it? You don't go to a TED Talk and 2 people are just standing in front of the speaker, not knowing what to do. What do I look? I'm 8. So, Celebrant Foundation, again, this is just an option. I like to call it the TV talk show format. So the 2 of you stand next to each other, facing the audience. So you're kind of facing, you to hold hands, you can kind of lean on each other if you want to, and I'm over here. Now everyone can see everyone. Plus, that position is usually one in a church where the preacher man's up on another level. So in a theatrical blocking way, it makes sense in a church. You're usually not in a church. You're in rooms just like this sometimes. We're all on the same level, both literally and metaphorically here. So I like this aspect. Just recently, I had 2 rehearsals in one day. The rehearsal, older couple, they're lovely, they're in their 60s, second marriage for her, third for him, 3 is the charm. And I told them about this setup, and they're like, thank God we get to do that. Oh, this is much better, so much more comfortable. Then that afternoon, I was telling my other couple, they're about, 28, 26 maybe, about this option, and you should have seen the look in their face. So we went back to this. I was telling them about it. We could just talk show form, that way everyone's seeing it, we're sharing the story, the whole drill, and they'll just the ashen, like, No, we have to be like this. We have to be like this. And look, it's their wedding. If they want to be like that, they can be like that. But let them know there are options. But you can do this, and often I can move around the couple and talk to them, whatever. It works out fine. It works out fine. That's pretty much it. Okay, you may be seated. Thank you so much. You did great. You did great. All right. Rehearse. I think my takeaway about this slide is to rehearse. I'm not sure, but I like spending time. There's the DJ, he's there early. The ring bearer is getting walked through his paces. I'm there early. I noticed there's a bunch of candles around the altar space there. I got to make a mental note not to knock them over. If I'm moving around and being, dramatic, don't kick over a lit candle. Don't rush. Get them to stand for the bride. This is like 101, really. If you don't get them to stand, they won't stand. If you remember to get them standing and you don't tell them to sit, they won't. You have tremendous power in that moment. And the bride, please put a $20 bill in this bucket. You maybe see it. They will do anything you tell them to. Get out of the way before the kiss. That's just basic. I even tee it up for the photographer. I just tell them, now I get to say something you've been looking forward to hearing for a very long time. And it's such an important photogenic moment. I'm going to say it from over there. And I completely clear as far stage right or left as the microphone will allow me. Take the mic stand with you. Photographers hate mic stands. More than anything, actually. More than anything. They hate microphone stands. They have pictures on their wall at home with X's through them. Don't knock over the decorations. Smile. Always smile, even if something doesn't go perfect. It's okay. We're here at a wedding. It's a great day. We're all very lucky. Make it legal. Research the state rules about getting ordained, for one thing, about who needs to sign where. Some places the couple signs and the witness signs. Sometimes only you sign. Sometimes only the witnesses sign. Figure it out. And if you're in New Jersey, good luck to you. Get ordained by American Marriage Ministries. Universal Brotherhood did my ordination, and I do ordinations for them as well. And there's some others I prefer not to mention. Marriage license, study it, get it signed in the right spots, make it clear, mail it on time, have black pens. Hey, there's a great book I wrote. Yeah. And I think I did the QR code right, if you do your phones in the QR code. They're going to mail you the slides, though. You can do it later. Best ceremony ever. I'm very proud of it. And that's me. And thank you all so much. Appreciate it.